Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to give it until about 5 past. I'm realizing a lot of people actually just kind of noted the time in their diaries, but didn't actually register for the webinar. So I'm just giving a couple of people a few more minutes to get themselves into the actual Zoom link. So we're going to be starting at 5 past. Thank you very much for joining us promptly. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to get going if that's okay, Stu. Welcome to the Earth Observation for Water Quality Virtual Stakeholder Workshop. Just going to show you guys the agenda for today, and then I'll hand over to the next speaker. Here we go. So yes, this is my welcome and introductions for everybody. We'll be handing over to Dr. Stuart Bernard from the South African National Space Agency, who will be telling us a bit about the new Earth Observation Frontiers program, the funding mechanism that made this project possible. We will also then be handing over to Dr. Marjolaine Krug from the Department of Forestries, Fisheries and Environment, who will provide a brief overview of the National Oceans and Coastal Information Management System, which is the framework through which the products and services that we develop in this project will be disseminated. I will then be providing a more detailed project overview on this, showing you some of the capabilities that exist in the Earth observation domain, after which we'll have a short Q&A for anybody who has any burning questions about the presentations. Please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A as we go along, and we'll get to them after the presentations. And then after that, we would like to hear more from you guys, the stakeholders. So we'll have some interactive Jamboard sessions where you can paste your comments and sticky notes on the Jamboards. If you're not familiar with those, we will show you how to make use of them. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Stuart. Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you very much, Marie. Yes, and thanks to everyone for joining. You know, the views of the users in terms of this kind of service development are always absolutely critical. So Very happy to see this workshop happening and have you all here. I won't use slides. I'll just tell you briefly a little bit about NEOFrontiers and then the NEOFrontiers view on this particular project. So NEOFrontiers is currently a 5-year Earth observation focused funding program. The funding is provided by the Department of Science and Innovation through SANSA. It's co-managed with the NRF. It's typically announces anything from about 3 to 5 competitive calls a year with a total budget of anything up to about 15 million Rand a year. This project is a very good example of one of the more kind of service-oriented projects. Other projects include things like longer term hyperspectral remote sensing development, development of smart tools for small-scale farmers, development of artificial intelligence roadmaps, the development of climate hazard tools, etc. And I don't have a link to provide you, but if you Google NEOFrontiers, it's a quite a well-chosen name, and I think the first link you come up to will show you the current calls from the NRF. So what informs the projects we try to fund through NEOFrontiers is primarily a year-long user requirement that we undertook, which kind of gives us a roadmap across all of the Earth observation capabilities, anything from new sensor development to right at the end of what we call the downstream. So in other words, users who are getting knowledge from Earth observation and are complete non-specialists. And from that kind of roadmap, that allows us to pick areas where we see that it would be of very high value to fund further development. And so this was one of the first calls from NEOFrontiers, and we're very happy to see it going ahead. And the underlying rationale was that, first of all, to support the very worthy endeavors of OSIMs, but to realize the high resolution, i.e., 300 meters and below capability for coastal and estuarine water quality, because we know from the last 5 years or so of work on OSIMs that this is a capability that could be brought into place, and we know that there is a real user need for it. And so it seemed like a very very worthwhile project, and one that would realize quite a lot of value. And I'm hoping what we'll see today is quite a breadth of user needs. So we know that anything from the aquaculture industry through to fisheries management, through to ecosystem scientists, through to coastal infrastructure such as desalination, or any infrastructure or industry use that looks at either the abstraction of seawater or discharge into the sea, hopefully would find this kind of service very, very valuable. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'm very, very interested to see what the user views are on this, and looking forward to a very constructive engagement. So thank you very much, Marie.
Thanks for that, Stuart. Next up, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Marjolaine Crew from the Department of Forestries, Fisheries and Environment to give us a brief overview of OSIMs. You're just still muted, Marja.
Yes, thank you, Maria. I was struggling to find my microphone icon there. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, so I'm just presenting briefly on what OSIMS is. OSIMS stands for the Oceans and Coastal Information Management System. It's an initiative funded through the Operation Pakisa project and led by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, together with the Department of Science and Innovation. So the OSIMS is a service to the users to provide tools to improve ocean governance and promote the development of a sustainable ocean economy. The system builds on multiple partnerships who contribute to the system either through in-kind contribution, co-funding, or data sets. It has a dedicated IT and data center established through the Marine Information Management System, the MEMS, where we promote as much as possible open access to data, and also have established tools so that people can search and research data. And this is really to just promote information sharing. The decision support tools, which you can see some of them on the left-hand side there, are there to support the general public, government, non-profit organization, and industry. And they're developed in consultation between stakeholders and developers. So some of the tools include the Fisheries and Aquaculture support tool, also a tool within the domain of marine spatial planning or maritime domain awareness through the integrated vessel tracking tool. And you can see that water quality is one of the tools, but at this stage, not very developed. So these are some of the tools that are available through OSIMS at the moment, but some are in quite well advanced stage of development, and some are very much still emerging, like the water quality tool. One of the tools we use a lot is integrated vessel tracking. That is a very data intensive tool where data is uploaded continuously, and the fisheries support through Fisheries and Aquaculture Desk decision support tool or provides alerts for red tides and harmful algal blooms, for example. All right, so the project of the OSIMS was established, through a number of relationships and partnerships with other institutions, but two of them being the CSR and SEON, where the CSR implemented the system in 2015 up to 2020, and SEON also contributed between 2018 and 2021. And now we're entering a second phase of OSIMS, and we're bringing other partnerships with the South African Weather Services, and of course, all the existing relationships are continuing with different departments, such as the South African Maritime Safety Agency, for example. These slides provide you some idea of who the users are. In the bottom part, you see that most of our users are sitting in government, but some of the tools also accommodate needs from non-profit organizations, such as the NSRI, or from industry with the abalone or aquaculture industry. Another thing to note is that the program is dependent or has dependency with other programs. Some of the strategy of the DSI and of SANSAD relies on the operational and functioning OSIMS to deliver societal impacts. And there are European, for example, initiatives such as the GMS in Africa, which contributes significantly to the co-funding of the project. I mean, this slide is a bit outdated, and the NEOFrontier project is a typical example of how, we can work together to achieve more, and will be benefiting OSIMS as well. So there are other examples of this, but essentially we are integrated within a framework of national, regional, and international programs and collaborations. I'm just showing here some examples of the decision support tools provided through the OSIMS. So here, this is the coastal viewer, which provides information to users through the display of GIS layers. You don't need any knowledge of GIS. You can just go through the system and display maps of different things. You can access layers such as marine protection, zonation areas, launching site for your boat, access to the beach areas, also information on biodiversity and protection and ecosystem vulnerability, and this sort of information. And a similar tool that also uses GIS layers is the Marine Spatial Planning tool, which is very much used by the department. And in these systems, like you don't have any knowledge of GIS required, you can just interact with the layers, but you can't obviously manipulate or edit the data. So the data is protected from being interacted with or modified. And one of the challenges at times is to actually agree on what data can be delivered through the system and to get new data put the system. So this system relies on a more static updates. So it's not as dynamic as some of the other tools on OSIMS. We have another tool, which is a very dynamic one where data is continuously updated, which is the integrated vessel tracking tool. And this tool is used for vessel monitoring, surveillance of illegal activity, and detection and operations planning, the detection of oil spills or bilge, and safety at seas. So this tool supports the State Security Agency, the Department of Defense, the South African Maritime Safety Agency, the Navy, and also useful for marine pollution purposes. So this tool has had some direct benefits that can be measured by the number of arrests or the avoiding really illegal activities in our seas. And while the tool is not advertised in the media, it has supported a lot enforcement activities in our ocean domain. Another tool that Mary Smith has led, Dr. Smith has led in the past, in the first phase of OSIM, is the Fisheries and Aquaculture tool. And here I'm just showing the red tide harmful algal bloom tool, which allows users to monitor risk for red tides. And this can avert, serious economic loss, for example, for the aquaculture industry, because they're able to switch off their pump and isolate the system from potentially contaminated water or toxic water into their system. So there's also some measurable economic impact of this tool. And this tool same is used day-to-day by stakeholders, and they communicated risk through WhatsApp messages, for example. So some of the upcoming developments that we're quite excited about is within the ocean modeling domain. That's an initiative that's led by SEON. And they've developed both models in HANCAS, so historical archive of models in the past to look at previous conditions and understand the ecosystems, as well as forecast operational models that can be used to respond to certain issues at sea, such as pollution from oil bilging events, for example. So one such operational model has been developed within the Algoa Bay region. And in this model, we provide forecast 5 days ahead of parameters such as currents, temperature, salinity, water level. And we also provide projections of where oil spill particles would drift should there be an oil spill event in one of the bunkering sites within Algoa Bay. So you know that within Algoa Bay, you have oil-to-oil shipment, ship-to-ship oil transfers, and there's associated risk of oil spills with that. And this is potentially a high risk for the African endangered penguins in the regions and other ecosystems within the region, which are highly sensitive. And then another development in progress is also the development of indicators to look at climate variability and monitor ecosystem variability. So here I'm just showing 2 examples. One is an algorithm developed regionally by Christina Russo, and that was published looking at detecting the position of the Agalas current. And we have also implemented an algorithm that can monitor heat waves across our coastlines from sea surface temperature from satellites. So one of the things I think that OSIM has done quite well is to involve the users and the stakeholders in the development of the tool and the design. And this is done through technical advisory groups. So for each decision support tool, we establish a technical advisory group where the developers and the stakeholders can have discussions and report on how they use the tool, what the limitations of the tools are, what new developments are needed. And so the development of the tool is always done with this feedback mechanism to the user. One thing that we've done as well is to facilitate, the systematic data uptake into the system by developing data apps. One successful example of that that we've implemented, we're working with the National Water Quality Lab, and they now have their monitors inputting their data when they measure things at sea directly onto the data app, and it then becomes available to our system straight away. And it's also ensured that the data is safely archived, and also archived in a way that it's not corrupted, and it's always following the same standards in its metadata. All right, and that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marjolaine. It's great to see where this project actually fits in with OSIMS and what we are going to be working towards. Right, so next up, I'm going to move on to the presentation of the EO4 water quality project. I'm just going to switch off my camera to hopefully preserve the bandwidth a bit better, and share my screen. Right. Can I just get an okay from somebody saying out loud that you can see the correct screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I didn't want to continue on my spiel with the wrong screen in place. Okay. So welcome everybody, for all of those who've joined us slightly later. I'm glad to present you our new project, the development of new high resolution water quality observation capabilities for coastal and estuarine systems, which we have shortened to EO4 water quality. So this is a combined effort between the coastal systems and Earth observation research groups and the developers from the next generation enterprises and institutions from the CSR. We will also have further support from researchers at DFFE, SAON, RE, NMMU, UCT, and SANBI. Okay, so both Earth observation and water quality are fairly broad terms. So when we do refer to Earth observation, we are talking about gathering information about the Earth's surface while using remote sensing technology such as satellites. And this allows us to both assess the current status and the changes in the environment. We're also using the term water quality in its broadest possible sense, in that we're referring to the state of water bodies for a wide range of uses, such as recreation, industry, aquaculture, and proper ecosystem functioning. So just a bit of a project overview. This is a 2-year domain action development, or domain development action. So we will be specifically focusing on developing high spatial resolution water quality products from freely available environmental satellite data. And we're also going to be mostly focusing on the coastal and estuarine domains of South Africa, because the inland water bodies have generally been fairly well monitored through operational products so far already. So apart from just developing the appropriate processing chains and algorithms to provide these accurate map products, we also want to find out more from our user community in what formats to present or make these data and information available so that it would be the most useful. During this project, we will also be collaborating with Cyanolax, which are the analogous provider of inland monitoring solutions that I was talking about. They will be supplying us with their suite of high-resolution satellite data products from the second half of this year, while we are still developing our new products. All of the newly developed products and services will be integrated into the Oceans Decision Support tools, specifically the water quality tool, which we will also be further developing as part of this project. And lastly, we will also be collaborating with ScienceLink for our science communication during this project. So what do we specifically want out of this project? So we are here to, first of all, showcase some of the Earth observation capabilities that exist in South Africa and the rest of the world. But mostly we want to hand over to you guys to hear more about what your needs are well, basically what the needs are of the potential users of these satellite products. So what decisions and actions you actually make on a daily basis, and for us to figure out where we should put most of our research and development efforts. We would also like to invite the interested members of you to join our technical advisory group, where you'd be able to receive updates of new products and services and workshops, and provide us with feedback about our tools and developments. Right, so let's move on to the pretty stuff, the satellite data. So much of water quality monitoring will generally focus on the types of things that you can have that can have an influence on the color of the water. These are things like algal blooms. Generally, you think of a red tide or a very green slick of cyanobacteria, or things like muds and suspended solids from either a river or an effluent or a pipeline or outflow. So these are generally measured with optical ocean color sensors. There's also thermal sensors, which can measure sea surface temperature, and you also have radar sensors, which can measure things like oil slicks. There are, however, some limitations. So if a parameter does not have a measurable effect on the color of the water, we are generally not able to detect it. So these parameters like nutrients, dissolved oxygen, various pollutants or toxins, or even salinity at high resolutions are not parameters that we can necessarily detect directly via satellite. Because ocean color satellites also rely on the energy from the sun, we also can't tend to measure through clouds or measure at night. And we're also limited to the surface of a water body. And whatever target we're looking at needs to be detectable by the individual pixels of a satellite sensor. So what we call the spatial resolution of a sensor. It's also important to remember that satellites, at least the satellites we use, the free polar orbiting environmental monitoring satellites, they move in fixed orbits. So they have a specific overpass time, and they are unfortunately not point and shoot. So you can't just get the information whenever you want. And also sometimes this information can be complex for people who are not used to working with it. But even with all these limitations, satellite data can still be a very useful resource. Because of the long-term publicly funded international missions that are currently in commission, the data are freely available, and it is a routine and reliable source of information that's going to be going for the next 10 to 20 years. It also provides global coverage, covering a much larger spatial scales that is possible with point measurements. And it also provides historical coverage, or at least back to 2015, if we're only talking about the Sentinel satellites. Usually you find if you combine the accuracy of in situ measurements and the increased spatial and temporal coverage provided by the satellites, you have the most powerful combination. Right, so in this project, we'll be focusing specifically on the freely available data from the European Sentinel satellites. And generally with free global available environmental satellite information, the general rule of thumb is that the higher the spatial resolution, the lower the revisit time. So the smaller the pixel sizes that you're trying to look at, basically the longer it takes in between overpasses for your specific area. So for instance, the highest spatial resolution that we can achieve is from the Sentinel-2 satellite with a pixel size or spatial resolution of between 10 to 60 meters. But because of this high resolution, it covers the Earth in a very narrow swath of information. So between the two satellites, it has about a 5-day revisit time. Sometimes where the swaths overlap, you might have 3 to 5 days, but generally you're looking at 5 days. And this is, once again, if there's no clouds or anything in the way of your measurement of the ocean. Satellites with larger pixel sizes like Sentinel-3 can cover more of the Earth more frequently. And for instance, with Sentinel-3, you could have a daily revisit time over most of your areas. Okay, so now I'm just going to provide you with a couple of beautiful examples of what these satellite sensors can actually see. For comparison, I've used a couple of aerial shots from John Tresfon so that you can have a slightly more familiar view. And then I've shown the accompanying satellite information, which represents the same features. So this is an example of a color front and false bay. And many of these examples are just qualitative images. So it means that there's no specific concentration or data level associated with these pixels. But the research and development in this project will actually enable us to quantify or assign concentration levels to the spatial information of these images. Here's a similar example of turbidity sediments and river plumes. So this basically, it enables us to look at the spatial extent and the coastal impact of river inputs into the marine domain, which can have various implications for fisheries and coastal ecosystem management. I've also thrown in a couple of examples of phytoplankton blooms, and although scary or dangerous looking, many of these events represent fairly harmless or normal ecosystem functioning, like this Noctiluca bloom, which you can often see around Cape Town or False Bay as orange or brown slick in the water. You can see both in the aerial photos and also on the image of Gordon's Bay on the right-hand side. A very familiar occurrence in Muizenberg, for instance, is also this the brown waters in the Muizenberg corner where all the surfers are. And this is actually a surf diatom that frequently occur along the coastal regions of False Bay. And people often mistake this for surface runoff or effluent. But yeah, so we know that this is actually a diatom bloom. There's also often some very dark and absorbing blooms along the coast, which sometimes, if you look at the aerial photograph, it might even look like an oil slick. But because of the spectral information from the satellites, we can actually tell that it is in fact a red tide. And then also using the daily low resolution imagery, we're able to track larger spatial scale events like the red tides in St. Helena Bay that often cause the crayfish walkouts. And because it's the low resolution data, we can collect more spectral information, which enables us to actually detect the type of phytoplankton in the water and measure the environmental conditions and the potential harm that can come from a persistence of an event like this. I've also just shown the Sentinel-2 high resolution image on the right-hand side, just to show the cool comparison between the two different satellite products that you could find. We can also detect absorbing and bright plumes from pipelines and outfalls. And if these features are large enough and persistent enough, we're able to detect them inside the Sentinel-2 imagery. And lastly, operational oil discharges from vessels, whether it's accidental or deliberate, are a growing concern as the levels of maritime traffic increase. These events can actually be detected in Sentinel-1 imagery, which has synthetic aperture radar sensors, which can measure at night and through clouds. So these products are produced as part of OSIMs and could be pulled into the water quality tool if there is enough interest from users. Okay, so we have shown you the Earth observation capabilities and some of the resources that are available, but now we actually want to find out from you how you make your daily decisions regarding water quality and what type of information would be the most useful to you to support your activities. So in terms of the type of data, the type of products, information, and insights that you would like. So just to get the brain juices flowing, I've selected a couple of examples of ways that satellite information can be displayed. So you might look at it as, for instance, at the bottom, the true color product, like just almost like an aerial photograph view. Or you might have it in terms of maps on like a Google Earth type of interface. But sometimes people are more interested in like the the summary graphic, which includes kind of like a bit of a time series view. I've also included the cyanolax application, which is more like almost like a weather type application for water quality. So it just tells you the basic, like, yes, it's good, it's a good time to go swim, or no, it's not safe, with like the conditions that you have right now, or like a traffic type of summary indicator, traffic light, like you have on the bottom left that they use on the NOAA coral bleaching app. So yeah, these are just a couple of the type of ways that satellite data can actually be displayed in a way that makes it maybe a little bit more user-friendly. Okay, so like I said, we've shown you some of the examples and some of the applications, and now we actually need your feedback. So apart from what we're going to be doing today, we will also be sending out in the next couple of days a 5 to 10 minute survey, just to have a bit of a better understanding of some of the monitoring needs that you might have. This will be a shareable survey link, and hopefully people who weren't at this workshop today, we can share it very, very widely within South Africa and hopefully get a fair amount of diverse feedback. In terms of the future of this project, any new developments that we create, while we don't have necessarily an official project website yet, we will be sharing on our Tumblr blog, which is simply EO4WQ.tumblr.com. There's not a lot on there currently, but as things become available, we will be sharing it on there. We also have a Twitter page, which is just at EO4WQ.com. At EO4WQ. And also please let us know if you'd like to join the technical advisory group, where you'll be getting email updates on any product developments and workshops. My email address is at the bottom. Please feel free to contact me for any information. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be using the Jamboards. I'm going to paste the link in the chat, hopefully, in a few moments' time. For those of you who have not used Jamboards before, once you click on the link, it'll take you to a website like this, where you will have basically have a question at the top. There's the function to use a little sticky note, which is the middle square on the left-hand panel. So you basically just click on the sticky note, and that enables you to place a note on the page, where you can edit the text, change the size, move it around, change the color. You can edit it afterwards, so don't worry if there's any problems. But yeah, I am just going to quickly stop sharing so that I can get to the links. Oh, sorry. Before we get to that, I'm just going to open up and see if there are any questions before we go on to the Jamboard. Sorry, I almost forgot about that. Unfortunately, I can't actually see if there's anything happening, but if there isn't,
Marie.
Okay, if there isn't, then I can just I'll just carry on the Jamboard side. Just quickly looking for the link.
Marie, there is a question in the chat. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. That would be great.
It's from Sibusiso, who's asking if the system will measure spatial extent of water bodies.
I'm just trying to think. I wonder if we're referring to, for instance, like an estuary, or because generally we'll be talking about, or we'll be looking at systems that are almost connected to the marine environment. So in a way, I guess that would be possible. But we
I
just
guess
have to
it's
find out a bit more about the needs.
I guess it's the extent of, say, a pollution bloom or something like that.
Ah, okay. Well, some of the functionalities that we think about, you know, if it's a specific signal, we could almost like draw a polygon around that specific signal and then use that to measure the spatial extent. We do something like that for some of the harmful algal blooms, for instance. So a functionality like that could be possible, yes. Okay, so I've pasted the Jamboard link on the chat. Please let me know if you guys can or cannot see it. I've seen a whole bunch of people actually joining us.
The link is working fine.
Oh, okay. I'll share my screen again so that we can actually get to see a bit. Okay, can you guys see my Jamboard screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go to the first one, which is just to describe your interest or role in water quality. So as I said, if you are wondering about how to actually add anything, on the side here, you've got the panel with a little white block. So you can just click on that and a sticky note appears. And you just type and that appears on the side. Once you have that, you can actually just move it around. You don't have to put your name there if you don't want. You don't have to put any extra information. All you have to say is who you are. I'm guessing that's Marjolaine. That's typed in the pink. Thanks, Marjo. Cool, thanks, Stu. Okay, there could be a wide variety of people. You could just be a researcher, you could just be a concerned citizen. Okay, for anybody who's joined late, we're busy with the Jamboards currently. There is a link that's been placed in the chat if you want to be able to reach this Jamboard and put your inputs in. I'm not sure if we should maybe keep reposting the link in case anybody joins late. Okay, so there are actually several of these boards. So if we do move on to another board, you can keep putting input on any of them. But I'll keep this one open just for a few more minutes.
So just out of interest, we don't have anyone who's actually abstracting seawater in the audience or anyone who might be a proxy, so aquaculture or other water uses.
Yeah, I figured at least if we don't have any of those people in the audience right now, hopefully they'll be captured in the survey.
Right.
At a later point. Sure, I'm really just hoping for kind of blue sky thinking in this instance here. Yay, freshwater and estuarine water quality specialist. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think I might move it on to the next one. In terms of water quality parameters, so if you're thinking about, you don't just have to think about the ones I've shown today. It could be any parameter that you measure on a daily basis, like if you are just a concerned citizen, you might even just be interested in the temperature. So yeah, any type of parameter that you could have interest in. This could be, you might be worried about penguins and oil slicks, or suspended particulate matter, E. coli, salinity, even if you can't measure it with a satellite. Or if you're interested in research and all you want are high resolution chlorophyll products for your studies, there's quite a wide variety. Oh, Stu, you're a unicorn.
Trying.
Yay, we've got some beaches.
So Maria, I don't know if at this stage we want to include the kind of time aspect of things, because, I tried to hint at that. You might be interested in effectively, some level above what's considered background, for example.
I'm not sure. I'm not going to move my screen now, but maybe you can just check in if that type of question is maybe addressed in any of the other boards.
Yes, no, I think it is, but I guess what I'm suggesting, it doesn't matter if we capture ideas twice, but if people want to express the idea that it's not just a kind of single data point, but actually, a single data point in the context of much other data, then that's a useful thing to capture here.
Yes, no, that's true. Also, well, like you say, there might be, in terms of the time aspect, it might be that you are interested in these measurements, but whether you're actually looking at it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, whether it's a once-off research project, that type of thing as well.
So I'm quite interested in that risk to marine life. I don't know if whoever put that there
Could maybe slightly elaborate what
wishes
type
to
of
talk
risk,
a little bit more about it.
whether it's maybe blooms or
Heat waves or fish
heat
kills,
waves.
or large mammals, or, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to type as much as you want. Okay, just going to share the link once more on the Jamboard, just in case anybody has joined us a bit later. Yeah, and feel free, even if you're a collaborator on this project, feel free to add your 2 cents. Yeah, trying to capture as wide interest as possible. I think a lot of this, the type of inputs we put here, will also kind of help us to guide the survey to capture the wide range of people and needs that might be out there. Ooh, toxicological data. Yes, illegal discharges, that's good. Okay, I'll keep this open just for a minute or so more. If anybody has joined late, we're busy with the Jamboards. There's a link in the chat of the Zoom. If you'd like to join us on the boards, you put all your inputs on using the sticky note function on the left-hand side. Yeah, you just place a sticky note or click on the sticky note, type in your comment, and it'll automatically appear on the board. You're still able to edit the text after you've typed if you have made a mistake or if you want to change anything. Okay, and yeah, as we move through, you guys do have access to all of the Jamboards. So you can move back if you want to put any further comments on the previous boards, or you can move on to the next frame. If you think about something from one of the previous boards, you can go back and add it there. I think I'm going to move on to the next one for now. But like I say, if you think of anything, please keep adding it. We've already got some input. Okay, so what are some of the decisions or actions that you have to take on a daily basis? So I know this kind of sounds like someone who does this for a living, or like I say, on a daily basis, but maybe think of it as any time frame. You know, if you're just doing a research project on a once-off basis, or if you're planning for the future of the fisheries over the next year or 10 years or something like that, you know, it's more about the decisions or the actions that are going, or that you're going to be using the information for. Okay, estuaries conditions, so that's more like in every 5 to 7 years. That's good. Like Stuart mentioned earlier, you can feel free to repeat yourself if you feel you've already added some of the information on a previous page. If you've already captured like the fact that you want it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but yeah, feel free to add anything.
I think it might also be worth capturing, what you're trying to do with the decision if you wish to do that. So,
Yep.
So for example, the ecosystem extent, what happens to those decisions? So the larger impact, so the kind of intervention you're looking to make, for example, as a government department on a longer term basis, that information is also super useful.
Okay, cool. Can you maybe just place that on a sticky note?
Sure.
Just to maybe just put it right next to the question or something. I know when I was talking about to Anina Mum from Science Link about the science communication parts of this, I also realized that as scientists, we often think of this in terms of very specific ways. But I mean, sometimes you have a journalist or someone who actually wants to write a story about this type of things. And, like what type of decisions do they want to make if they look at this information? So always think of it in a lot of different ways.
Because ideally in the long term, so if anyone has any interest in natural capital accounting, so, one example was kind of quantitative mapping of, for example, the kelp beds and calculating their value in terms of ecosystem services. So that kind of thing, okay, the kelp bed example is a little bit off point here, but that focus on the kind of value of the ecosystem services is also a very relevant thing in this context.
Yes. Is there any projects that are going to be looking at that? Any funding that you guys have available for that? Hopefully somebody can look at that.
Well, we're super keen, and Ken Findlay, I'm not sure if he was here, so he's the Saatchi on natural capital accounting. He was super keen, but unfortunately you needed very high resolution data, and the cost of that was just phenomenal. So, maybe in the next few years, if we can acquire enough higher resolution data, then that would be a possibility. So, I mean, also from a SANSA perspective, if you want stuff
there's not a lot of movement on this board now. So once again, I'm going to move on to the next one, but please feel free to add things as you think about them. Okay, so let's look at the scales of information that you might need or would be interested in. Okay, so this can also be quite broad in the sense that it could be in terms of spatial scales, like the type of features that you're going to be looking to detect. It might be in terms of the temporal scales, so like how frequently would you want the information? Is it the type of information you want as soon as possible, or are you more interested in it being available or a long time series of historical information being available? Once again, I'm thinking in terms of research scientists, so there could be way more answers than what I've just mentioned.
So you might also want, for example, a kind of threshold in time. So, you know, if you wanted to look at, say, the riverine influence of estuaries, you know, you might be interested in for example, a monthly average of some thresholded sediment footprint.
Okay, I see every now and again there's one or two more people on the well, listed in the board, so I just keep repeating myself, so sorry about that. But yeah, we're looking at the Jamboards, so the user input. If you've joined us on the Zoom a bit late, there's a link in the chat of the Zoom to get you to this Jamboard online. You can place a sticky note by using the little box function on the left-hand side. Click on it, place a sticky note, type in your information, press save, and it'll appear in the chat. Oh, sorry, it'll appear on the board. You can still edit it afterwards. Yeah, there are several boards. We're on board number 4 at the moment, and you can move through them, between them, and add information or add your thoughts to any of them. We're basically just moving through the board slowly, so we allow everybody to add their thoughts as we're going through. Okay, cool. There's a nice one about change detection for oil spills. I've seen some nice examples for that about the Mauritius oil spill that happened. Oh, it must be more than a year, probably a lot longer than I think. Time goes so quickly. But yeah, there's some nice examples of that. Oh, operational dredging activities. That's interesting. Okay, everybody that's added these ones about the daily, long-term, daily historical, current, projected. If you maybe just add the parameter or parameters that you might be most interested in, that would be very useful. We can maybe try and tailor it more specifically to what you'd like. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next board. Like I said, remember you're able to add to any of the boards at any point. So feel free to do so if you think of anything. Okay, There you go. That's a good one. So some of the let's think about the barriers, like why haven't you used remote sensing in the past? What makes you scared of maybe using this information now? This could also be very straightforward in the sense of you didn't know it existed, or you didn't know where to find it. Some people might even know already that it's not appropriate for what they want to achieve. Like I said, you can't measure under the surface. You can't measure through clouds. You can't measure at night. Maybe you're only interested in toxins and you can't see it from space, type of thing. Yeah, any barriers that you might have had in the past to using satellite information. Might be too complicated. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we can use the answers that you give here to maybe make more simple training available, or more simple explanations of the products that we put out there. Yeah, these are some very good points. Tiny targets, lack of expertise, that's all fair points. Yes, the amount of data processing and storage needed is very much the one of the big limitations, even for us remote sensing specialists. Gaps in time series, yes, cloud. And a public enemy #1 for ocean color scientists.
So if you want to detail that a little bit more, so gaps in the data time series, what would be really useful is to say, I need data on minimum routine weekly, for example, for it to be useful. That kind of information is super helpful. So obviously there will always be, if the highest revisit you have is daily, it's going to be seasonal, and you might expect 2 out of 3 days in summer and maybe 1 out of 4 days in winter, depending where you are. But understanding the critical need is useful in terms of gaps.
Okay, so once again, for anybody who joined late, we are busy with the Jamboards. There's a link in the chat. To get you to this point, you can add sticky notes on the left by clicking on the left-hand side. Please feel free to move through in all the Jamboards on the top. There's about 7 pages, I think. And yeah, if you think about anything while we're busy on one board, you can always move back to a different one and add your 2 cents there. Thank you, everyone. There's quite a lot of input here. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next board for now. Okay, so after I showed you guys some of those types of information that you could show on a water quality tool, what type of features or functionality would you want included in a water quality tool? So let's just go back to a couple of examples. Okay, so this could be something like you're only going to use it if it's mobile friendly. Like if it's just a web application on a computer, it might not be as useful for you. You might want there to be alerting functionality. Maybe you literally just want it to look like a traffic light, just red if it's bad or green if it's okay. You might need some form of a time component in there, like yes, like how it's changed from yesterday or from last week or from last month. You might want to be able to download maps very easily, make it look very pretty for reports. Yeah, like exporting data functionality. Like I said, if one of the barriers was that you didn't know where the products or things came from, maybe you want there to be a very good, easy to understand information buttons for everything. Okay, there's a nice one about going through the time series very easily. Yes, cloud, some information about the clouds. It's always great if you download so many images and all of them are cloudy and you've already downloaded them. That's not good.
So another capability that might be interesting to think about is the ability to see other data. So for example, wind data or a wind forecast, or, you know, ocean currents, or, you know, current forecasts or something like that. Yes. Which might not be doable, but it's useful to capture the ask.
Yes, no, definitely. And I think as we move through OSIMs and all the different functionalities that are being built in OSIMs, and different data layers could potentially be pulled into this tool. Yeah, so if there's maybe a wind or a current forecast that's relevant, we could look at features like that. Thanks everyone. There's some really cool stuff here. Okay, so a lot of this, a lot of the functionality that we are would like to be able to put into this tool will definitely need, you know, some development and some, you know, some feedback from the people that actually want to use them, so that we can know whether it's actually working or whether it's actually hitting the mark. So yeah, any of you, once again, if you're interested in joining our technical advisory group, to be able to provide this input for us and to be able to look at the products and see if they're actually capturing the type of information that you want, please contact me on my email address. I can place that in the chat. Please contact me, or either just say, here, I'd like to be on the technical advisory group. It shouldn't be too much overhead. You just receive an email every now and again telling you to check out the Tumblr for the new products, and you can provide as much or as little input as you like. You'd probably also be invited to attend our OSIM's stakeholder workshop, usually once a year. But you definitely get the latest updates on our products and development as we move through the 2-year project. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last one. As you know, you feel free to move through any of the boards if you think of anything else. Okay, so here we just ask you if you've got any high impact case studies that you would like to put forward for us to work on in this project. So obviously we're going to design the services, or design the products and the processing chains. We're going to work on providing the functionalities and everything like that. But as part of the project, we're also going to just dive a little bit deeper into the research part of some of the areas. So whether it's like one specific river plume that you're interested in, or there you go. Got a couple of examples already, or a specific outfall. If you want to see if we can detect that specific area that you know gets harmful algal blooms, or I'm hitting a bit of a blank with all the examples, but I know there's quite a few.
I don't know if there's Lauren or anyone else from DFFE here, but yeah, that's it. So the abstraction and discharge regulations and how it could be used around that, I think would certainly be very useful. I don't know where we are with our Western Cape desalination, but that would also be, I think, another very nice example.
Yeah, I know it's, you know, it's always difficult to make a specific event, but I'm hoping to, like I said, capture some of those inputs through the survey. Not a recommendation, more of a question is definitely allowed. So if there's more of those, please add them. Can I just ask about the 45 WWTW? Is that wastewater? Sorry, my acronyms are, I'm running out of acronym space in my head. Thank you very much. That's what I thought it was, but okay, remember everybody, you can still go back to the previous frames at the top if you'd like to add any thoughts to the previous slides. You can just read the topic of the slide at the top and see if anything else comes to mind. As I said during the presentation, we will be creating a short survey capturing similar types of questions, so about the spatial scales and the type of parameters that people are most interested in, so that we're just trying to quantify where most of the interest lies. I'll make this survey available as a link that people can share, so hopefully we can try and reach more people, and we'll be disseminating it as widely as possible. If you were at this workshop, please do still fill out the survey. We want to make sure that everybody's voice gets heard. Whether you are, once again, just an kind of like an interested bystander, or whether you're a researcher that's specifically working in a very small domain, or or an aquaculture user, a desalination plant owner. We're trying to keep it as broad as possible. I'll hopefully be sending out that survey next week. And it can be, once again, disseminated as widely as possible. We seem to be kind of winding down at the moment. Stuart, do you have any kind of parting comments? Anything that we've missed out on today?
No, I think this is great. I mean, I think it will be much easier for people to comment once they start seeing some prototype effectively, because, it's quite hard to comment without actually looking at either a decent mock-up of what you'll be using or some prototype.
Yes, so no, definitely.
I think this is really great information. I think, one of the key things that I think would be worth doing is, when we developed the aquaculture tool, the kind of climatology or intelligence through time thing was seen as a kind of luxury add-on. And I think it would be good to try and plan for that if resources allow, early on, because I think that's, it's clear to me that information across time is very important.
Yeah.
Just a thought that there's some stuff in here that, for example, the oil spills is one, or I'm eyeing that 45 wastewater treatment plants. That's actually valuable information, even if it's not absolutely appropriate to the scale that this project will implement on. So if, for example, we're looking at systematic acquisition of high resolution data in the future around specific sites, because that's how you'd have to do it. You might put, if there are some critical wastewater treatment plants, you might try and put those into. But certainly if, for example, there's a wastewater treatment site in an estuary that maybe has some surface expression and 10-meter data might pick it up, that would be well worth looking at. I mean, I'm thinking of False Bay, right? So, yeah, no, terrific. It's just great to see the response and the involvement, and I can see there's already masses of information here.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, thank you to everybody that has taken the time to put your thoughts on the Jamboards this morning and joining us for the presentations. It's been very valuable, and we're hoping to grow the interest in this community, or at least in terms of the Earth observation products available for this community. And hopefully through some science communication, we can let more people know about all the tools that will hopefully be available in the future. Yeah, I think it'll be quite valuable not to just operate in a bubble as we normally do, try to get the word out a little bit more. Okay, guys, as we said, you can still move through the Jamboards and add anything to the other pages if you think about them. Yeah, there are, I think at least there's 7 of these boards. But I think we have covered a lot of information. Okay, I think we can finish off a little bit early. I'll leave the boards open so you guys can still add until 12 o'clock. Just gonna stop sharing this screen quickly and just put it back on the PowerPoint presentation. Right, everybody, thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to thank Stuart and Marjolaine for presenting on NEOFrontiers and OSIMs respectively. To everybody that joined us today, if you'd like to keep up to date with the project, you can follow us on Twitter, and also check out the products that we develop on the Tumblr blog until we've actually got the official OSIMs water quality web tool up and running. Anybody that is interested in more information, if you'd like to share in situ data with us to help us to validate our products that we create, if you'd like to be part of the technical advisory group, please feel free to contact me on my CSR email address. yeah, if you'd like to collaborate with us on a case study, anything like that. Just checking the chat if there's anything else. Thank you, Mojo. Thank you, Anina. Look forward to working with you guys too. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marie. And thanks everyone for your input.
Cool. Thanks, Arman. You can close the project if you'd like.
Okay, I'll send you the link of the recording now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah.